Sometimes love isn't enough. As an adoptive mom, people would often say this to me, as if to imply I couldn't love my son enough to change behaviors or heal his trauma, so I should probably just give up. At least that's how I took those four powerful words, which had buried themselves deeply in my mind, leading me to doubt my ability to parent my child. Sometimes love isn't enough. That is the truth. Oftentimes, you need love and powerful, personalized tools to raise a child who's experienced trauma and disrupted attachment, or a child who you're struggling to connect with. I am on a mission to help parents raising kids with a tricky past to show up with unconditional love and practical tools to lovingly manage even the most challenging of times. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Plus, if you like what you hear, I'd love for you to leave a review. Now let's get to the good stuff. Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I am your host, Angie Grant, and I've been thinking a lot about, you know, I, I've been thinking a lot about human design. I think about it every day. Often, when I meet people or am watching people interact, my brain automatically goes to the idea of, I wonder what's in their design that led them to act the way that they're acting. Oftentimes when I'm working with clients, however, they they are curious to understand their design and the elements of their design, but understanding what to do about that is a bit of a pickle, right? So it's great to understand, for example, that the second line profile likes to hermit. It needs to honor its need to hermit in order to integrate new information and to really tap into its gifts. And on the shadow side, the line 2, for example, can get really stuck in hermiting and not wanting to go out and share, or can get really stuck in that introvert or hermiting energy. And so when I share pieces of elements or pieces of the design with my clients, the question that I'm often faced with is, how in the world do you shift your frequency? How do you shift the way that you are, the way that you're being? Because the life that you're experiencing right here today, right now, it seems real. It seems like it is the only way that you're living life. You wake up in the morning and you feel a certain way, and things happen in your life and you feel a certain way about that, and you react the way that you've always been reacting. And it seems like this idea of shifting your frequency can feel almost impossible. So earlier this week, I was listening to a training by my coach all about frequency, and I ended up sharing this topic at a weekly workshop that I host at a recovery center. I don't share human design there, but I do a weekly mindset coaching session followed by some EFT. And we were talking this week about this idea of frequency. And so here's the scoop, is that we all have our own kind of standard frequency that we're operating at all the time. It's our baseline frequency. Some of us, our baseline frequency is higher, and for some of us, it's much lower. I truly believe that part of our frequency is part of our design, part of how we're born, part of the energetic blueprint that we've been given. And that gives us a baseline frequency. I would like to believe that most of us, or all of us, were born with a higher level baseline frequency. But life happens to us. We were conditioned to not stay at that frequency. And all kinds of things can happen, from experiencing stressors while we were in the womb to experiencing stressors or traumas in our life early on or later on in life, even things like our parents not understanding our unique energetic needs. Those things can have such a huge impact on our sense of self-worth, our sense of lovability, our our sense of personal value. When our sense of value, our sense of self-worth, when those pieces of us, and I actually refer to them as our resiliency keys, when our resiliency keys are impacted by life, by traumas, by epigenetics, right? By things passed down from generation to generation, when our resiliency keys are impacted by what has happened to us in our life, it impacts our baseline frequency. I think about this a lot, right? Some people in our life are operating at such a very low baseline frequency. They are stuck in this space of feeling victim to everything that's happening to them. They're stuck in this space of not being able to take responsibility or even understanding that they have the power to take responsibility for the things that are happening in their life. I see it in most of the people that I interact with. And of course, I see varying degrees, right? Like the people that are in my life take responsibility for some of the things that happen in their life, but then fall victim to other things. For example, might take responsibility for, reacting to their kids in a way they don't want to, but then might feel victim to not having enough money or not being able to make enough money or not having not being able to get the job that they want or to be an entrepreneur or whatever it might be. I think that most of us have some level of struggling to take full responsibility for everything that's happening in our life. And so when I when I think about this concept of our frequency, our baseline frequency, and all of the things that can have a negative impact, that can drag us to a lower frequency. And I say drag us in such a victim way, right? When I think about that and really wrap my head around what power do we have over that? Well, I think a couple of things. I think that understanding the elements of our human design is one tool to help shift this for us. Because back to my example about the line two profile, if I am to stay in that lower level frequency, that victim frequency, that's me making a choice now that I know this, right? Before I knew this, I it was easier to be stuck in that victim frequency. It was easier to be stuck in a lower vibe because I didn't know that, again, for example, for the line two, how important it is to honor that need to hermit so that I really can integrate and tap into those gifts. Prior to having that information, it was easy to beat myself up. It was easy to see that as a flaw or something that was wrong with me. And I had plenty of feedback in my life by well-meaning people who wanted me to fit into a mold, but I had plenty of feedback in my life that I was too quiet, too introverted, too whatever, which created a thought in me that I wasn't right or that I didn't fit in or that I was less than, which left me in that lower level frequency. And again, I'm not saying that anybody did anything wrong. I'm sharing an example, but now that I know, knowing that bit about the line two profile, for example, gives me the power to step out of that lower level frequency. It gives me the power to make a decision, to stay in this victim pattern where I feel like I don't understand why I need so much alone time and I question what's wrong with me. Or I can make a decision to really honor the energetic needs of that line too. It puts me in a position, once I have that information, it puts me in a position where I get to choose to either honor the needs of my line two or not. or stay in that victim state. So when we start to learn about ourselves, and everything in human design has that yin and yang, that positive and negative frequency to it, everything does. Everything has two sides to the coin. I know that sometimes the pieces of information that I remember about human design, sometimes I'll latch on to the negative, or sometimes I'll latch on to the positive. But reminding myself and digging in deeper and researching more to better understand the equalness of both sides of the coin really is key to making decisions to get out of that low frequency, to step into that higher frequency. So, as I've been thinking about this idea of frequency and really tapping into the information that was shared with me earlier this week that I ended up sharing in the workshop that I hosted this week, I really want to talk about what all of that energy means for you, for me, and what we get to do about that. So when I think about this idea of vibrational frequency, I think about the work of David Hawkins and how he really took the the human emotions and mapped them out, essentially saying that emotions have a frequency to them. We know this to be true because think about the last time that you walked into a room and you could feel the emotional energy before you could hear anybody's words. You could feel that low level energy. And on the flip side, think about the last time that you walked into a room where you can feel that high level energy, where you've walked into this space and you don't even have to know what anybody's talking about, but you can feel that energy. Our emotions have a vibrational frequency to them. And understanding that gives us this space to decide how we want to create our own experience. And when Dr. David Hawkins had mapped out the human emotions, he had said if he mapped out all emotions on a scale of 0 to 1,000, what he said was that any emotions that fall below 200 are in that negative frequency. And so 200 and below are in that negative frequency, but he said that 85% of humans spend more than half of their time there. Isn't that wild? Where from 200 to 1,000, so an 800 span, only 15% of us spend more than half our time there. Well, I want to be in that 15%. I want to spend most of my time in that higher level frequency because honestly, it feels gross to be in the lower frequency. But how do we do that? What do we have the power to do to shift that? Well, that breaking point between the low level frequencies and the high level frequencies, that breaking point is courage. When you think about what falls into that lower level of the spectrum, things like sadness and anger and frustration and doubt and regret and all of these negative feelings that we can get so pulled down into, so stuck in, when we think about that, and then we think on the flip side, those higher frequency emotions, things like willingness and acceptance and love and joy and gratitude, those emotions on the positive end of the spectrum, we get there by having the courage to do so. When we're stuck in that low frequency, when we're stuck in feeling frustration or stuck in feeling afraid to do that next thing for us, the key to shifting our energy, to shifting our vibrational frequency is courage. When I think about this concept and think about how this applies to the work that I'm doing with clients and think about what does this mean? Well, oftentimes parents come to me because they're stuck. They are frustrated with their kids' behaviors. They They've tried everything. They've tried every strategy that's out there and nothing's working. They have followed experts. They listen to their child's therapist or psychiatrist or teacher or whoever it might be. And the parents that I work with are trying so hard. They're desperate. Well, I know when they come to me that desperation, that frustration, that anger, that regret, shame, all of those negative emotions are have become a habitual part of the way that the parents I serve think about themselves, think about their kids, think about their situation. And oftentimes they can't even see that peace and connection and happiness could be part of their story. They are stuck in this state of victimhood, feeling like that connection parenting, where parents are like sitting down and laughing with their kids and having a good time with them, and they can actually like ask their kids to do things and the kids do it. The parents that I work with often think that's for those parents, that's not for me. Well, that thought process of staying stuck in that negative frequency, that negative energy, is it requires courage. It requires the courage to think differently than you've been thinking. It requires courage to possibly do things different than you've been doing. It requires courage to imagine that perhaps that life is for you too. When I think about why I share human design with my clients and the power that it holds to help them shift from that negative frequency of feeling so stuck and stepping into courage to do something different. I see how hard it can be for parents to step outside, do something different, take different action than they've been taking. It takes courage to go against the grain of what their child's therapist or teacher or specialist is telling them to do. And it takes courage to try something that might not work the first time or the 10th time. But it is within that courage that change happens. It is with making decisions to do things differently, to really take the time to study our design, to study what we're learning about ourselves, and to figure out where have I seen evidence of these parts of my design in me before? Or where, where can I make a conscious decision, use courage to shift one little element of my design, to flip from the negative frequency to the positive frequency? I there one example that has come up with a couple of clients now is um, the fourth line profile. That when somebody has that fourth line profile, in order to feel fulfilled, in order to fill their tank, quite frankly, having close, meaningful connections is key. And so when somebody has a fourth line in their profile and they go to work and they don't, they have really superficial connections at work and then they come home and it seems so task oriented and it's about getting this done and getting that done and then they're fighting with their kids because the kids aren't listening and they're dealing with all the behaviors and then they have to, micromanage all the whatever that happened from school that day and they're not taking time to connect. It has a huge negative impact on their ability to show up as they are. But it takes courage to stand up for ourselves and say, you know what? I need to create time for myself so that I have the ability to create powerful connections. It takes courage to do something different than you've been doing before. So this is what I want to leave you with for this episode is that the key to creating change, the key to creating a higher frequency in your life every day is actually interwoven into your human design. If you want to know how to go from a lower frequency where you're stuck and you're feeling like nothing's working, like you're feeling frustrated with what's going on in your life, and you really want to step into that higher frequency where you feel fulfilled and peaceful and connected and aligned, well, the answers to that lie in your human design. If you're not sure where to start or what to do about that, or how to really tap into your higher energy for yourself, for your kids, for your family, I really encourage you to book a connection clarity call. It's totally free. And I really see it as the key to creating a parenting plan that is so uniquely designed for you and your kiddo. I hope that you found this episode so incredibly powerful. Thank you for joining us for Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. If you resonated with what you heard here, please subscribe to this podcast and give us a review. You can also follow us on all the socials. Check the show notes for all the details about how to start tackling behaviors and creating a powerful, loving relationship with your child, a child who needs your love the most. And if your gut's telling you that it's time for a change now, book a free consult. I'd love to help you love unconditionally and show you that you have that power within you.